Some secrets are so deeply buried that even time struggles to find them.
This is the story of an empire's throne and a friendship that shook its very foundation.
But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing among the Queen's young African-American female and male advisors.
Hidden in private diaries for over a century, a tale of loyalty and companionship waited for the light of day.
She had spent decades mourning her lost husband, living in a world of grey shadows and royal protocols.
But thousands of miles away, in the heart of India, a new chapter was about to begin.
His journey across the seas was more than just a trip. It was a bridge between two worlds. It was the Queen's Golden Jubilee, a celebration of 50 years of power and tradition.
When Abdul first stood before the Queen, something unexpected happened. A spark of curiosity ignited in her tired eyes.
He brought the scents and flavors of a land she ruled but had never visited. For the first time in years, the Queen felt a sense of wonder.
He guided her through unfamiliar written characters, introducing a different linguistic tradition.
Urdu wasn't just a language for her. It was a window into a culture she had only seen in books.
They spent hours in the library, discussing philosophy, history, and the beauty of the East.
Yeah?
The Queen began to see her empire not through politics, but through the stories of her teacher.
The palace kitchens, once strictly British, began to smell of cumin and cardamom.
But the royal court was not pleased. They watched this growing bond with deep suspicion. The Queen valued his honesty over the flattery of her advisors.
To Abdul, she wasn't just an empress. She was a student and a friend.
Years passed, and their bond only grew stronger, defying the rigid social structures of the time.
He became her most trusted companion, attending her at every major event.
She granted him titles and honors, much to the dismay of the British aristocracy.
In the quiet moments, they found a peace that the crown could never provide.
This friendship was a testament to the fact that the human heart knows no borders.
The Queen became a dedicated student, finding joy in the curves and dots of a foreign script. He shared the ancient wisdom of the East, from astronomy to the philosophies of great Sufi poets.
Yeah.
She ordered the creation of gardens that reminded Abdul of his home, blending English roses with Indian jasmine.
Their afternoon teas were no longer just royal traditions. They were sessions of deep intellectual exchange.
The young clerk from Agra was now a figure of significance, moving through the heart of the British Empire. He brought a sense of vibrancy and color to a court that had been frozen in mourning for decades.
They found a quiet sanctuary in nature, away from the prying eyes of the royal staff. Time seemed to slow down when they spoke of their respective childhoods and the worlds they came from.
The Queen commissioned several portraits of her munshi, ensuring his place in the palace's visual history. Even during her travels to Scotland and France, Abdul was always by her side. Abdul helped the Queen decorate rooms with Indian craftsmanship, creating a durbar room of immense beauty. This room became a symbol of her love for India and her respect for the man who represented it.
In her private journals, she described him as a true friend
and an excellent, kind man.
For Abdul, the transition was not always easy. He often felt the weight of being a stranger in a cold land.
She treated him with the kindness of a mother, protecting him from the coldness of the court.
In him, she found a soul that wasn't intimidated by her crown.
Their relationship was a complex game of tradition versus human connection.
Every letter she sent him was filled with genuine concern for his health and well-being.
Two cultures were finally coexisting in the most private spaces of the monarchy.
He shared stories from his homeland, offering a glimpse into life beyond distant borders.
The Queen felt a renewed sense of freedom, inspired by Abdul's perspective on life.
She bestowed upon him honors that were usually reserved for high-ranking officials.
The music of the palace began to change, reflecting a more global and inclusive world.
He walked a path that no one before him had dared to tread.
As her reign reached its twilight, her reliance on Abdul became her greatest comfort.
But beneath the surface, a storm was brewing among the Queen's advisors.
The establishment felt their influence slipping away, replaced by a man they didn't trust.
Secret meetings were held to discuss how to separate the Queen from her munshi.
Rumors began to circulate, fueled by jealousy and the rigid prejudices of the time.
When confronted, the Queen was immovable. She would not let the court dictate her friendships.
Abdul bore the hostility of the court with quiet dignity, never losing his composure.
The atmosphere in the palace grew cold, filled with unspoken resentment.
Every move Abdul made was scrutinized. Every word he spoke was analyzed for hidden meanings.
Her son and heir, the Prince of Wales, led the opposition against the munshi.
The conflict between the Queen and her family reached a breaking point.
She realized that her power had limits, but her loyalty to Abdul was limitless.
The court tried to isolate her, but it only drew her closer to her Indian teacher.
In times of stress, she turned to the spiritual lessons Abdul had taught her.
The Queen was aging, and she knew her time was short. She wanted to ensure Abdul's future.
He stood in the quiet halls, reflecting on the immense journey they had shared. He understood that the end
The social isolation was a silent war, fought in the grandest rooms of the world.
The light of the Victorian era was beginning to fade. Every minute spent together was now precious, a treasure against the coming darkness. She promised him that he would always have a home, even when she was gone.
The bureaucracy prepared to erase his name from the royal records.
The quiet before the storm was heavy with the weight of history. He knew the end of an era was near, and his heart was heavy with grief.
In that one room, the empress and the clerk shared their final stories.
The health of the Queen began to decline rapidly in the winter of 1901.
Her final acts were to protect the man who had brought her light in her darkest hours.
On January 22, 1901, the world stood still. A long era had... The empire mourned a mother, but Abdul lost his only protector.
The transition of power was swift, and it was brutal for the munshi.
The new king had no room for his mother's Indian friend.
Hours after the funeral, the order was given to raid Abdul's home. The king ordered every single piece of correspondence between the queen and Abdul to be destroyed.
They wanted to burn the evidence of a friendship they found shameful.
He was given a few hours to pack his life and leave the country he had served for 15 years.
The man who had been the Queen's closest confidant was now a deportee.
The journey back to India was a journey into exile and silence. He returned to the dust of Agra, but the world he left behind was already forgetting him.
But the court missed something. Abdul had managed to save a few precious diaries.
For decades, the official history of Queen Victoria made no mention of the munshi.
His presence was scrubbed from the walls, his name removed from the guest lists.
The secret was safe, buried under the weight of a century of silence.
Abdul lived the rest of his days in quiet reflection, carrying the secret of a queen's love to his grave.
He died in 1909, a man whose story was thought to be lost forever.
History, however, has a way of breathing again.
In 2010, a researcher studying the Queen's life stumbled upon a set of Urdu journals.
The journals proved what the court had tried so hard to deny.
The world was shocked to learn of the deep, platonic love between a queen and her servant.
Their story was finally told, not as a scandal, but as a beautiful human connection.
She was more than a monarch. She was a woman who found a friend in the most unlikely place.
Their legacy lives on
As a symbol of bridging cultures
and breaking barriers.
Because in the end, love and loyalty are the only things that history cannot truly burn.
But why did the British Empire try so hard to erase a single man from its history books? To understand the silence, we must understand the fear that gripped the royal establishment.
In the eyes of the court, Abdul Karim was not just a servant. He was a symbol of a changing world they weren't ready to face.
She was the Empress of India, but through Abdul, she became its student, a shift in power that terrified her advisors.
The documents found in 2010 revealed a level of intellectual intimacy that was far ahead of its time.
While the world saw a rigid monarchy, Victoria and Abdul were building a bridge between two vastly different cultures.
History is not just about kings and wars. It is about the quiet moments that define our humanity.
The bond between the Empress and the munshi was a rare bloom in a garden of cold diplomacy.
For a century, the munshi files remained the most protected secret of the British Crown.
When the diaries were finally read, they didn't speak of scandal. They spoke of deep, mutual respect.
Victoria protected Abdul like a lighthouse protects a ship from a ruthless storm. She fought her own cabinet, her own children, and her own prime ministers to keep him by her side.
Abdul gave her a new lens through which to see her own empire. a lens of empathy and curiosity.
Through his stories, the queen traveled to the streets of Agra and the banks of the Yamuna without ever leaving England.
The letters they wrote were filled with a tenderness that challenged the stiff upper lip of the Victorian era.
He was a man caught between two worlds, belonging fully to neither, yet changing both forever.
The destruction of their letters by King Edward VII was an attempt to rewrite the Queen's heart.
But shadows have a way of returning when the sun of truth finally rises.
Today, we see Abdul not as a footnote, but as a central figure in the Queen's final years. And
his legacy is a reminder that even the most powerful walls cannot stop a genuine human connection.
The clock of history eventually corrects itself, bringing forgotten stories back to life. Their friendship was a message of peace in a time of conquest.
In a world often divided by race and religion, their story stands as a beacon
of what is possible.
As the sun set on the Victorian era, it rose on a truth that would wait 100 years to be told. Every word the Queen learned was a step toward a world she was never allowed to fully embrace.
The mystery of the munshi is the mystery of the human spirit's need for companionship.
Life is a game of positions, but friendship is a game of souls.
Every book on these shelves has a story, but some are written between the lines. Even in the vastness of an empire, the light of one friend can keep the darkness away. His name was once whispered in anger. Now it is spoken with fascination. The harmony they created was a melody that the world wasn't ready to hear. Eras come and go, but the essence of a true bond is eternal.
The halls of power still hold the echoes of their conversations.
One person's influence can spread through history like ink in water, changing everything it touches.
It was a partnership of the mind, a meeting of the East and the West. The diaries were the key that unlocked the private heart of a public icon.
Sometimes the most important people in history are the ones standing just outside the frame. The munshi brought the warmth of the Indian sun to the cold British winter. If we look closely enough, we find that history is made of small, personal revolutions.
Today, we teach their story as a lesson in empathy and the courage to be different.
The Queen lived long enough to see the world change, but her heart remained loyal to her munshi. Abdul was the compass that helped her navigate her final, lonely decade.
Their friendship stood firm, while the world around them tried to tear it down.
They were two people who found a common language in a world of silence. Like the sun and the moon, they belonged to different spheres, but shared the same sky.
The story of the Empress and her munshi is finally complete, no longer a secret, but a legacy.
In the end, we are all just stories, waiting to be told correctly. In the end, we are all just stories, waiting to be told correctly.
Truth, like life, will always find a way to break through the hardest of stones.
Thank you for joining us in this journey through time. History is full of secrets, and we are here to reveal them.